sure you would have done this anyway, but could you talk a little bit about, you mentioned austerity is your ability to withstand cold, heat, hunger, thirst, uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah, could you
Yes.
elaborate more on that?
Yes. Yes. First of all, the practice of austerity, most of you intuitively already understand that, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. Otherwise you would probably be on the riverside enjoying the nice weather with a big pint of beer and a box of fried chicken or French fries or something. Because austerity means actually to deliberately subject yourself to discomfort. But you do that consciously, and also you do that in a sensible way. And the practice of yoga is just that. Every time you do an asana, every asana feels intense. And if you build up the intensity correctly, you come to the point that you are on the verge of discomfort. You are uncomfortable, but bearable. So, with every asana that you practice austerity. And by doing so, you strengthen yourself, physically and mentally. Many people intuitively practice austerity, but not consciously. So we go to the gym. If you go to the 5th floor, you will see the fitness room is as large as an Olympic-sized swimming pool, because that was what it was before, with hundreds of machines, and there are so many people. They never thought of austerity. They just feel good when they work out. But basically what they do is they practice austerity. They subject themselves to discomfort in the form of running machines, cycling machines, weightlifting, all these kind of fitness machines that are there. So that is a form of austerity. Just a question, who takes the stairs coming up here to the 3rd floor? Yeah. Yeah, that's terrible. only 5 or 6. I never take the elevator. It's only 2 floors. It's a good exercise too. Just walk the stairs. And it saves energy, so you're also green.
You had a joke about that. Austerity.
You have a question?
Does austerity apply to physical situations?
Absolutely.
Can it also be interpersonal, emotional
Discomfort? Yes, too. It applies to everything. Austerity with emotions is also very important because emotions destroy. Many people are of the opinion that they have a right to have emotions, so why would you avoid it? Just sensible person recognizes that emotions harm. Every time you allow emotions to take over, you become so unstable and you need time to recover from that. Better to avoid it. Austerity is in all sense. I'm talking a lot, I'm talking much too much actually, because that is not austere. But I overrule my austerity because I have so much to share. And I want to share as much as possible in the short time we are together. But if you look at the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, for example, there are only 195 sutras, and they have 500 different words only, Sanskrit, only 500 different words, and they are all together on one banana leaf. Interpreters these days, they fill 300 to 400 pages to explain just what is written on one banana leaf. That is austerity. That is the ultimate austerity in words. But the reader has to do a lot of effort to then try to understand what's behind the words, and for that you contemplate. Yeah? Thomas?
If you unbalance yourself in one aspect and then you unbalance yourself in the other aspect, does that balance you out?
It can be, yes.
It can be.
Yeah, it can be. Very often you see, if you don't do it consciously, that is usually the case. And most people are basically always going up and down between left and right, between tamas and rajas, between laziness and activity. We are always bound by the duality. But you see that if you push yourself too far, there's always a counter reaction. So if you do too much sport, for example, it will naturally be followed by a period of rest, laziness, just a period that you really don't feel like putting on your sports gear and get back to training again. The same with work. That's why most of us are so addicted to our 2 or 3 times a year vacation. Because most people just work too much. 8-hour work days, that seems natural, but actually it's too much. It is not natural. So what we do during those hours, we already dream of our next vacation. So we put in the effort, save some money, and we are already dreaming of our next tropical island, or mountain that we want to climb, or whatever vacation. But that is basically the cycle that most people are in. Yeah.
You said that 5% about of the population was in rajas
Yeah.
all the time. Is that preferable to being in tamas all the time?
No.
Because my mom is like that. Like she always has to be doing something. Like I don't think she would ever retire because she wouldn't be being productive anymore. Like she doesn't want to take a vacation. So can yoga be helpful to people like that?
Absolutely. But only if she wants. Tamas or rajas, both are undesirable. There are those kind of people who are very rajashi. They're kind of like workaholics. They can't stand still, even when they don't have anything to do, they will find something to do. But very often those people burn out. If they don't stand still, something else in their body will stand still, and often that is the heart. Sooner or later. So both conditions are, the ideal condition is of course sattva, the balance between the two. Yeah.
Just on the topic of austerity,
Yeah.
I remember a couple classes ago you mentioned, I think we were talking about eating and how at the time your philosophy was don't force anything on your body, don't do anything that you don't want to do, and it sounded like that wasn't working for you because you were losing a lot of weight at the time.
Yeah.
But can you relate that concept to back towards austerity and about pushing your limits and knowing when it's right to be austere?
Yeah. Well, my life is maybe a little bit different from many people, but maybe you recognize something in it. I think I have a lot of qualities in me, a lot of interests, but as a child and as a teenager, I just didn't get a chance to develop any of those. On the contrary. And as I As I started practicing yoga when I was 20 years old, I became balanced. As a result of that, I started to come in touch with myself, with my qualities, and I felt very good, but as I talked about paradoxes before, at the same time I felt very frustrated because I felt all that energy bubbling in myself, in my being, and it didn't have a way out. Didn't have an outlet. Because I hadn't developed my skills, I hadn't developed my qualities, my typical characteristics related to myself, my real self. And as a result of that, I put myself through very radical austerity. I did that in a natural way. Later I realized that that was just a way of bringing the balance back straight. Like Thomas just asked about if you go too much this way, then you go too much to the other way, then will that balance out? Yeah, that is exactly what it does. So years and years of neglect, lack of development, led to so much bubbling energy in me that I couldn't express my qualities because I was just a baby in that sense. They hadn't developed. So I started practicing Hapkido at that time, and I did that very fanatically. That's the reason why I came to Korea, because we had a teacher in Amsterdam who left after 3 years, and I was not ready yet. And I was totally devastated that he left, and I couldn't continue to follow my obsession, my dream. And so I will go to Korea. I didn't even know what and how to do that, but anyway, that was my decision. And so the next 8-9 years, I tried to finish everything that I felt I needed to do before just leaving everything behind in Holland. So I finished evening education and yoga training, and of course gathering money, to have enough money to stay here for at least a year or two. And here I did the same again. For 2.5 years I spent full time training in the Hapkido gym. And gradually I started teaching yoga. And I knew that I was really pushing myself too far, but I had to do that to give that energy an outlet. And altogether it hasn't resulted in what I do. But I wouldn't recommend that to you unless you really feel that from deep inside you that you have to do something like that, because it is harmful. It's not healthy. But if your energy doesn't have another way out, if you don't, in my case, I would have ended up in negative, destructive behavior, probably maybe drinking or drugs or anything not constructive. And that was the last thing I wanted to do. So I just followed my instinct, in fact. I could have joined the Marines or something like that, just go through that grueling training. I was hungry for something like that. I had to push myself beyond the limits. That was just at that time. But it made me understand very deeply the importance of not doing that. But in my case, I could not have avoided it, so I understand those people who also need something like that. Maybe some of you, when you go on a vacation, you go rafting or something, or hiking every day 15 kilometers or 20 kilometers, or cycle vacation every day 50 or 60 kilometers. That is austerity, you know. Or climbing the Himalayas with a little tent and yeah. If you compare that with the practice of or with going to Thailand or Bali, for example, that is the opposite. Although in Thailand, of course, you can go into the jungle and put yourself to the test there.
Just finding balance in your life.
Yeah, you worked hard, probably. But yeah, so in my case, I pushed myself too far, but I also knew that I knew I would leave it behind. It would make me stronger, not physically, that I didn't need, but especially mentally. You refer to eating. If you look at the pictures on the corridor, there are pictures where I was really tiny. That was actually austerity that I didn't force upon myself. I just, we will soon do the Kriya exercises. There's one Kriya exercise called Nauli that I did every morning after waking up. And that just makes your stomach very small and kind of destroys appetite. And you know, we say in yoga, do what you feel. So if you don't feel hungry, you don't eat. If you don't feel sleepy, you don't sleep. So I just followed my feeling and I had just one meal a day, sometimes two, but then one normal meal and one just a sandwich, small sandwich or something. And for a long time that was okay, but eventually the result was that my body started consuming itself.
It was that idea that I was trying to get at, that what, do what you feel, and negotiating that idea with austerity.
Well, that has taught me a very wise lesson also. And it reminds me of the story of Gautama the Buddha, because he did something similar. Gautama the Buddha was a prince. He was destined to take over the kingdom, start ruling the country. But Gautama also, a little bit like I said, I felt frustrated because I felt things in me that couldn't express themselves. Gautama also felt that he was a very spiritual being, but the luxury of the palace, the luxury of royal life, was holding him back from developing. So he was looking for austerity intuitively. And so one night he left the palace through a secret underground passage out of the palace. And he threw off his clothes and he started living among the fakirs. You know what a fakir is? Fakir? Fakir is a yogi that sleeps on a bed of nails. He puts ink through his cheek and he controls his pain and very tiny, always very tiny because they only eat grass or something. Super austere. But Buddha also, Gautama the Buddha, he lived with that sect for 6 years, and he was at the point of dying. He felt that his organs started to fail, the kidneys and the liver, and he was just totally emaciated, and he felt that he was dying. And at a moment of clarity, he decided that in contrast with the luxury of the palace, his fanatic austerity was also not constructive. And so then he left the sect, and the story goes that when he came out of the forest, he came across a goat. So he started drinking goat milk from the goat, and he just started eating again, and the result is a laughing Buddha. And the story of the Buddha is the golden middle way. Always try to find the middle way. And come back to what Thomas asked actually, that is also what happened with Buddha, and that is what happened with me too. First, standing still, no development, then fanatic austerity, trying to put things straight again, or trying to bring things back in balance. And eventually that balance occurs, and you become a smiling Buddha. Not just like that. Many years pass in the process, and as a result of that experience also, you learn many valuable lessons. If you feel that need, I advise you to give into that. Because if you don't, you will regret later when you're old, I think. I was 33 when I came to Korea, and I should have come to Korea when I was younger, but I couldn't. But on the other hand, if I had come to Korea when I was younger, I would probably not have been able to stay, and I stayed. Everything always comes together, and everything always seems right, in hindsight. So you have to follow your feeling. And with everything that I had learned, I knew that I was violating all the rules that I had learned about non-violence. Actually, basically only non-violence and non-stealing, the principle of non-stealing, because you are stealing from your health if you put yourself so violently through such rigid training. But I was true to myself, and that was very important. And my motive, purity of motive, also was there. I just had to do that and go through it. To find peace in my life, to find stability, and to make sense out of the past also. That where I got stuck. And I did that through extreme austerity. Maybe it would have been good for me to buy a bicycle and just cycle around Europe or something. I thought about doing that too as an alternative of coming to Korea. But eventually it became Korea anyway, because I did think if I don't, I will regret later. But anything will do, you know. Some of you may have done this when maybe after you graduated that you made a long trip for months or even years that you traveled around. Usually you don't have money after you graduate. On the contrary, you have a debt maybe because of studying. So you travel low budget and you always end up in tents and cheapest hostels where you sleep with 20 in a room with double or triple beds and these kind of things. That is austerity also. And I think it is very healing to people's soul to do such kind of things. It is the discomfort that makes you grow, that matures you, that ripens your soul. It makes you tough, it toughens you in a way. In a good way, of course. With food, to come back to your remark about my situation at that time. I've always been a vegetarian since I was 20. Before that, I also didn't eat much meat because my mom just couldn't afford it. But since I started practicing yoga and reading about it, I never had meat in my house. But I was not fanatic about it. If I would eat at my mom's house and there was a meatball on the table, I would just eat it and eat it with pleasure also. Very delicious. And for the rest, if I would go to a takeout restaurant and buy food, I would always choose the vegetarian dishes and have vegetarian spreads for my sandwiches and cheeses rather than ham or other forms of sausage. After I starved myself by accident almost, I have to say, I started eating more consciously 3 times a day, and also including some meat now and then. And that has worked out good. That has worked out well. But I advise everybody to try to control your diet, just for the sake of it, because you have a choice, and constructive to learn to say no, even though it is tempting. And to learn to make a sensible choice against your desire to have something that is nice and comforting and delicious and so on. Because you do that very consciously. And that is what makes the difference with any kind of discipline. If you do it consciously, it is always constructive, even though you seem to be harming yourself, for example, by being too austere, by being too fanatic. But if you do that consciously, it always leads to finding the center, the middle, the balance. But you have to go through that process and learn. Basically, it's an experiment every time, and you draw conclusions from that. And as long as you don't know, you continue to do it until you are confronted with, for example, with a bad outcome of whatever it is that you do, and then you say, now I understand. That's how it works. And it's best if you find out yourself, rather than reading about it, or even when you read about it, it does not become ingrained with you if you don't also experience it yourself. The practice of austerity is that you do that consciously also. You choose to take the stairs rather than the elevator. Why? Because luxury, I wrote in the handout that austerity is the opposite of luxury. And that is what it is. And why is luxury not good? If you are the slave of luxury, I should use the word slave, because it makes you weak and soft, and it makes you tapas. And that is what Buddha felt when he was in search of spirituality. The luxury of the palace was just killing him. There was no challenge. There was nothing to confront him with his good qualities, and he just needed to get out and face life, to find himself, to find his essence. And we all need that. We are all like Buddha. There is nothing special about that guy. He just did it very consciously, learned many wise lessons from it, and he or somebody else wrote that down. That's why everybody knows him. But we are all the same. And we all go through the same process in life. But the tendency, of course, is tamas, and it is easy to give in to the luxury that we live in, especially in the age that we live in now. We live in a very challenging age. It may seem very easy and luxurious and comfortable, but that is the whole problem. Because many people are not able to handle that comfort and luxury. And so they become very tamas. Do you understand that luxury makes people weak and leads to disease? So, what is important, this does not mean, I have to add immediately, this does not mean that luxury is bad. Because there are people who are capable of living in a certain luxury, but they maintain their health because they refuse to become slave of that luxury. And this is the big difference. And this is the difference with everything, with the use of computers. You can become addicted to computer, watching TV, romantic magazines, or we can become addicted to many things in which we can just surrender ourselves and just float off. And food, eating lots of food, it makes you weak. You lose your energy because of that. It destroys your energy. So if you have the strength to not become a slave, you can use all those things I just mentioned in a constructive way, in a positive way. You watch TV, but you watch TV selectively, rather than being glued to the TV and not being able to push the button to turn it off. You use the computer to find information, to write your documents, to read the newspaper. That is constructive, but as soon as you become addicted to games or porn, then you are becoming the slave of the computer, and it becomes uncontrollable in many people's cases. And luxury is very tempting. It's just so easy if if your parents are rich, for example, and so you are born in an golden cradle. You have everything. You don't have to do anything because everything is there. It is so easy to just get into that and just become totally Tapas. Because that's the result. Look, if you know, maybe you don't agree with this, but there are many people in this society who always complain about inequality. In China has been booming economically, so there are many rich people, but there are also many people who stay behind in development. They have nothing. Rather than going to work, educate themselves and work hard and become rich too, which they can if they only have discipline, they complain and they say, yeah, they are rich and we are poor and it's not fair. But people who are rich, there's always a reason why they are rich. People who have no control, if they become rich, they destroy themselves with their wealth. You know the stories of people who won the lottery. They win £2 million or $2 million or 2 million euros or more. And 5 years later they're totally bankrupt. They spend all their money on cocaine and fast cars and boats, and they bought a house for their mom and they bought a house for their sister, and 5 years later they have nothing anymore. Why? Because they have no control. They became slaves of luxury. If you have control as a human being, discipline, control, austerity, that means your wealth will increase rather than that you go bankrupt. So from today you cannot complain anymore that there is inequality. There is a reason why there is inequality. You can agree with this or not, but that is my insight. Austerity is a conscious choice that you make to go to the gym, to pick not always the delicious food, but to pick food based upon their nutritious value, to walk to the supermarket around the corner rather than to go there by car, to walk the children to school rather than by car. This is so common these days. There is a church here, right in front of my apartment. People in the neighborhood here, they come to church by car. They just live around the corner. I know of an example. Here behind, we have Vicentia apartment. And to get here to the gym, there are people who come by car. They drive around the block and they go into the parking lot. That is so, what is it, decadent? I just don't, what is in those people's minds? And they come here to work out in the gym. On the walking machine, the running machine, they work out. How stupid can you be? But austerity is something you approach in a sensible way. I'm not really a good example because I went very far, but I did it in a sensible way anyway because I knew I had to go through that. So as long as you know what you're doing, then it's okay. But it's probably the reason why I lost so much hair, and the rest of the hair is gray or white. But that's okay with me. I really don't care. As a result of everything coming back to balance again, I am much healthier than 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Those of you who know me from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you know. Because I looked older and I'm healthier than I do now. I had a photo made recently for, actually I had it made for this Namaskar magazine. They wanted to have a photo. And I sent these photos to my sister, because I had a 9-year-old photo, and the one I made recently, I sent it to my sister, and she thought the 9-year-old photo was the current one. And the new one was 9 years ago. Because the new one, I looked much healthier and brighter and younger, and you can't imagine. You just can't imagine. So, all everything together, and all the austerity that was necessary, has led to that result. You understand a little bit? Practice of austerity is not just for the austerity, it makes you strong. It strengthens you, physically and mentally. Why mentally? No, why physically? Because you put your body to the test. That is austerity. Mentally, because you do it consciously. It is a matter of control. It is a matter of not giving in to your tendency to find comfort every time. So when you walk into the building, your tendency is to get into the elevator. That is natural. Without thinking, you do that. But if you do it consciously, then you say, oh, it's only 2 floors, and actually it's a nice warming up or whatever challenge you find there. The fact that you do it consciously, that is very constructive for your further development. For one thing, it leads to you being able to say no. And as a result of that, you will see that you gain more and more control in your life. Not just about food or exercise, but in all aspects. Because one of the things that we have to learn as yogis, as people on the spiritual path, one of the things that we have to learn is to say no when we don't agree with something. And of course you will say, yeah, but I always say no when I don't agree with something. But when you become more sensitive, you will start to investigate the work that you do, for example. And although you have always taken it for granted, maybe you come to the conclusion that that really is not what you really want deep in your heart. And that can also apply to the relationship, to the friends that you have. The people that you meet every evening or weekend, suddenly you find yourself not connecting with them anymore. Why? Because on a superficial level, you've always connected with each other and shared your interest in music or dance or food or traveling. And then as a result of your increased sensitivity, you come to the conclusion that that was superficial and that you have a deeper interest, which they then seem not to have. And so you change your mind about those friendships. And indeed, you see what you see with many people, not just in yoga, but people who dynamically develop, also spiritually. They often change their job, even partner, and the country where they live. You do that consciously because you feel that dynamism in you, and you want you want it to come out. You want it to be challenged. And so one day you decide to leave everything behind. And there are many of you here who probably did that for one reason or another. No? Okay. For one thing, I've seen people coming here, ending up in a bad hagwon, where they make trouble about pay, where they break promises and agreements and contracts, and they run away, screaming and crying, and they go back where they came from. I advise you not to do that. Because you left your country and you came here for a reason, and if you give up because there is a bump in the road, you go back to the old situation, back to your old frustration, where you got stuck. The reason probably why you decided it's a good opportunity to go abroad and see new horizons and challenge new qualities in yourself. But if you give up, you're back to the starting point. But if you stay, you practice austerity. But you do it very sensibly. You serve out your contract, but in the meantime, you plan for another opportunity. Don't give up. Try to make things better. And doing that is a lesson for life. Never walk away anymore. Don't give up. Because that's a lost opportunity. We have to come back to karma, to that. We haven't talked about karma at all yet. But why? You have to ask yourself why you are in such a miserable situation. That is because you need that miserable situation. Believe it or not. That's a natural law. If there is something in life that you need to learn, for one reason or another, you can call it God, I prefer to call it higher powers, they will throw something at you to teach you a lesson. And usually that is some form of suffering, some form of misery, some form of trouble. So if you walk away, you haven't learned your lesson, wherever you go in the world or go back home, it will come back again. So better don't give up, practice austerity, keep your dignity, and learn the lesson that lies within that misery, and go on from there. That is an opportunity to make a leap forward in life, in your development, that you should not forego. That's my opinion. You have to become tough, and you do it in that way.
Question when you talk about this, what about relationships? When you're in some kind of bad relationship, how do you know how much austerity to take and not to take when it comes to this?
Yeah.
Don't give up.
I'm not a good role model, I think, in that sense. I stayed in a bad relationship for 12 years. And that is a very high form of austerity, but it's also killing. It's absolutely killing. But you are just a human being. And for me, being far away from home, having left everything behind, I surely was very attached to my partner, even though she treated me very bad. You can call it psychological abuse. So, like I advise you not to walk away from the hagwon, I didn't walk away from her, but I planned my future. Knowing that one day, sooner or later, the whole thing will explode and I will be on my own. So I just prepared for the future. And surely it did explode sooner or later. a little bit late in my case, but that was necessary also. That is my burden to carry. Maybe I was just too weak. That's why I emphasize also that we all have a duty to ourselves to be strong, independent also. Because with that strength and independence, you will never have to degrade yourself because you simply depend on somebody. That is my very important lesson I got in life. And as a result of this, I'm discovering again and again that there are many things that I can do that I before thought I couldn't do and relied upon my partner before because of the language, difficulties with language. But if you are forced to do it, then you will, at least if you have a determination. And for me, giving up has never been an option. But I would advise, even if it is an option, do not give up. Because it is a great opportunity to grow. That is austerity. That is a good question, Deborah, by the way. That is indeed, that is a form of control and austerity.
I just wonder because if you're, say you're in a bad situation or bad relationship, you want to endure certain parts through austerity. How do you know when it's time to not endure that anymore?
Oh, you will know.
So you just go through it.
Yes, the day that it's over, you will know. As long as you feel that you have to stay in that relationship, you just do that. That is very complex. It is but being in such a situation, you learn very much about yourself, about your fears, about your weaknesses, and that basically will make you stronger, simply being confronted with that all the time. Austerity. Buy a bicycle and make a long ride on the riverside a couple of times a week or so. Or a dog. I have a dog. I'm not walking the dog, she's walking me. So I'm very grateful to have that duty. That's why in the lunchtime I always go home. It's not because I don't want to see you during lunch. I gotta eat that too, but no, I take her out in the grass, then have a quick sandwich and I come. Get a dog, but don't buy one in the shop. Take one, beautiful one, that comes to you in the form of a car. I never planned to have a dog. It just happened.
What sort of dog do you have?
I have no idea.
I just want to know what your dog is.
She's this size approximately, white, totally white. She absolutely not. I got her from my neighbor, Korean, but I think it's not a Korean dog because she is suffering. As soon as spring comes and it's a little bit warm, I have to shave her because her fur is so thick that she can't go out in the summer. She dies from overeating. And when she's shaved, she looks like a pig. No, she really does. Her whole skin is pink with black dots, and you only see that when she's shaved. Yeah, you should see her. You will see her. So cute, so lovely.
What's her name?
Her name is Bija.
Which means?
Whitey. Yeah. I deliberately gave her a simple name because I always smile when people call their dog and they say, Jacqueline. Genevieve. I don't know what complicated names people give their shitty dogs. But yeah, so just think of you're white, so that's your name, white. And she learned to obey her name in one day. Very easy. Can you communicate with animals?
Yes.
It's very easy. You just have to start taking them serious because they do communicate with you. You just have to open up. She was so small. She was like a rat when I got her. It's curvy, and her fur was falling out because she was starved. She got once every 2 days or so. She got a little dry food, no water. She ate her own poop. The moment she pooped it out, she ate it up again. And she was dying. And my neighbor said, this dirty dog. So I said, this dog is this dog is not sick. This dog is dying because you don't feed it. Because you don't. It was tied to the water tap with a knot, not with something that you release, so with a knot permanently. Only 2 months old. So I told her, just give her to me and I will take care of her. Take care of her. And the first thing I did was give her water and food, because I had a little doggy already from my partner, also Karma. So we had dog food at home, so first I fed her, then I took her out for a walk. And only the first walk I used a leash, and every time after that I never used a leash. I never used leashes with dogs. They obey. Or you make them obey. You do that by communicating. It's marvelous. And this dog came to me at the moment that I was really lacking love and kind of desperate with the relationship I was in. And she saved me basically. I saved her, but she saved me too. And so she became so big. Very strong, very healthy, and very funny dog. Because I don't know why, but she's scared. You walk in the street and maybe she became so sensitive because I'm sensitive. But children, she runs away. Harabojis, Ajoshis, she runs away. She feels their energy and she just scared. Kopjeni, you know? Kopjeni? She depends. But she's so big, she's not scary at all. Yeah, karma. My way is I would never buy a dog. Never. Then, it is a big responsibility which I thought I couldn't take care of. But when something comes your way, you know when it is your karma. I try to avoid it because I have learned my lesson about karma. I heard that dog crying in the veranda for 1.5 hours. She invited us to eat with her. Me and my partner went to my neighbor to have some beer, I think, and eat. And I heard this little thing crying and I just ignored it because I know if I'm going to interfere with it, then it will become my karma. So just having learned my lesson, I just ignored it. But it continued and it became worse and worse. So I just asked, do you have a dog? Oh, yeah. Oh, so can I see it? Yeah, it's in the veranda. And there was that little thing and looked so naughty and I was sold. That is karma. You understand a little bit? Because there was a click, you cannot avoid it anymore. And then you have to just take your responsibility. And apart from the obligation, which it of course is, you don't want your dog to shit in the house, then you have to take it out 4 times a day, 3 at least. Whether it's raining or freezing or bloody hot, you just have to go out. But that gave some more structure to my life. It's good to have that responsibility. So, I would never buy. I would never go to a shop and buy some fancy curly thing or something. Because that is, no, I would never do that. Maybe when I'm old. No, I would never do that. so much love from a dog that you buy than one that you save. But anyway, this is not related to austerity. Questions about tapa? There are two ways actually to write the word, the tapa or tapas. Tapas is, Spanish. Side dishes. Side dishes when you go drinking. With the sangria. In the last paragraph of tapas, before dharana, tapas indeed saying don't get out of the way of difficult situations. Try to withstand them and make a sport to do so. This is what I try to explain basically. When you are being challenged, one way or another, do not avoid, just for the sake of not being stirred up, do not avoid challenges. Challenges are there to teach you something. Some people have that in a natural way. They do. Whenever there is a challenge, they go into it with a smile. I was very shy, I still am. But yet I'm sitting here teaching a group of 30 people. How is that possible? That's because I didn't walk away from the challenge. When I became aware of the fact that I was so very shy, I started working in a shop. Deliberately, consciously. Take on the challenge and force yourself kind of into a situation in which you cannot walk away from the confrontation with people. It was marvelous. And the customers in that shop loved me. They would come back because I worked there. It was an organic food shop where I worked a long time ago. So when you find yourself having fears, rather than avoiding them, try to face them consciously. That's nice, It's a wonderful way of living your life because you learn so much from it. That is also austerity. And of course, the practice of dharana. I've already mentioned that standing still in a pose, putting yourself under physical strain, that is practice of austerity. But dharana, that is mental austerity. Because in dharana, basically what you do is what Patanjali did. You reduce the words, reduce the thoughts. Be austere with thoughts. So you limit yourself to nada, and you try to not be distracted by thoughts. In yoga, I think you can safely say everything you do is a form of austerity, practice of austerity. Okay, I think enough said about this.
I have a question about the paragraph at the bottom.
About dharana?
After dharana, if you hear nada,
Yeah.
Good
Question, thank you.
When you talk about trying to hear that om, is it just one long one, or is it multiple ones like we do at the end of
No. It is one constant sound, just like nada. And I've been thinking about erasing this paragraph from the handout. I decided not to do that because om is very often mentioned in the scriptures, while nada is not. Nada is mentioned only once when nada is explained, but for the rest they always talk about om. But om and nada are in fact one. But when you start listening to nada, it is kind of faint and it comes and goes. But when you have trained yourself in concentration on nada, it becomes more and more part of you in daily life, in your activities, but it becomes also intense and deep. And I think that is the moment that you can consider it to be Om. It's still a buzz, but it's much more prevalent. Its presence is much more obvious, and is there throughout the day and the night. There are sutras in the various holy books that say you have to dedicate your life to singing Om. Now, I have seen people who sing Om for an hour or so. Om. Apart from the monotone buzz that may be kind of pleasant, I think that is not the purpose of that kind of sutra. Chanting Om, as it is described in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika and the Yoga Sutras and other books, is nothing less or nothing else than listening, concentrating on Om, letting Om be your guide throughout whatever it is that you do. So you're not verbally or physically singing, chanting Om, but you are with Om, simply. As much as possible. All the time probably is impossible. You are concentrated on things and you have no room to focus on Om. But as I said this morning with the evaluation, while I'm talking to you, Om is there. And it is kind of a connection. It is because of Om or because of nada that I get inspiration and that I tell you the things that I tell you. Without that connection, I would probably just read from the file and it would become very superficial and not interesting at all, I think. It becomes mental, while because of nada, I'm engaged and I speak from my heart rather than from a text. Purity is very important in your further development. You constantly have to ask yourself, what is your motive? To do something, to say something, to want something. That is purity. And as soon as you come to the conclusion that it is not pure, your motive is not pure, you deny it. There are many reasons for doing this. The most important is, of course, to increase sattva, to increase peace in your thoughts. It makes you become principled. That leads to more self-respect, which equals to more strength, stability, solidity. So you become stronger. Character is not something that you get when you are born. It is something that you either obtain through education and upbringing, and when you're older and independent, you fine-tune it. And as a child, it just happens. People pump it into you, teachers, parents, etc. As an adult, as a yogi, you fine-tune it and you bring it into incredible heights. Later, you will see that purity comes back in another form. That you have to start listening to your heart, what you really want. And you stop doing the things that you don't want. You've always done, just because you were supposed to, expected to. And you just stop doing those things. Why? Because they don't resonate with you. They are not on your vibration, on your wavelength. And we are full of those kind of things that do not resonate with us, simply because we are not sensitive enough, or we do feel it on a lower level, subconsciously, but we just do it because we think we should. We don't even think about it, we just do it. Because we've always done so, our parents have always done so, the people in our surroundings always do so, so we just do it, ignoring the subtle signals inside ourselves that tell us that it goes against our grain. And in the long term, this will lead you to do what is deep inside your heart. Like I am teaching yoga from the heart. That is because I have refused to do everything that people expected me to do. And every time I tried, because I was already a sensitive human being, every time I tried, I would always end up in misery. Same with relationships that are not fit. You have all kinds of motives for having a relationship, and very often they are not right. The only factor that is important in a relationship is whether there is harmony. If you are in a relationship in which there is constant conflict, fighting over small stupid things, ego-related things, you can be sure that even if it lasts long, it will not last forever. Harmony is the most important. But, of course, we are young and full of hormones, so the most and primary motivation to have a relationship is sex. Sexuality is the strongest motivator in human beings. Next comes attachment. If you have a relationship for a little while, you can't live without each other anymore. You become attached. And so slowly but certainly you drown, kind of, in another person. I've experienced that several times. And it made the failure, time and time again, made me more resolved, stronger, to become totally independent. And based upon that, then you can be pure in a relationship. If there is no dependence anymore, no attachment anymore, then you have a pure relationship. If possible, and that is the ideal, we will talk about this later in detail, but unconditional love. You understand unconditional love? That is, for most people, the most difficult thing to do. Because there are always conditions. If you don't do this, then I won't do that for you. And I want you to brush your hair like this. And I want you, this dress looks stupid on you. Why don't you put on some other shoes? Or that is conditional. I'm giving some very stupid examples. But we are full of conditions when it comes to relationships. All the time. And that is the reason why relationships are always full of conflict. But a relationship does not have to be full of conflict. It doesn't have to be. And that is possible if you both understand this. If you understand the concept of unconditional love, and you consciously try to implement unconditional love. That is difficult, but unconditional love means to let your partner go. To let your child go if you're a parent. Sting wrote a song about it. If you love someone, set him free. That is true. That is deep wisdom. And actually many songs, many artists are real artists are super sensitive beings. That's why they are always in tragic relationships. Because they are not yogi. They don't have the control tool of a yogi. Yogi is super sensitive like an artist, but has a control tool. Most artists end up in drug abuse, alcohol abuse, chaotic, tragic relationships, etc. Dramatic. They die at a young age. The real artist writes wisdom and sings about wisdom. And this is just a very simple phrase. Just like Let It Be from John Lennon, Let It Be, very deep wisdom. And there's no coincidence that they made that song. But if you love someone, set them free. If you have a relationship and your partner one day says to you, hey, I really feel like I have to go to Alaska. I have, there is this hole in my heart. Something I have to work out, and I just feel I have to do that. The usual reaction is, no, you can't do that. You are my boyfriend, you're my girlfriend, you're married with me, whatever. That is the first reaction. And most of the times it leads to huge conflict. And you separate in an explosion of anger and based upon attachment. But if you really love that person, then you understand that if that person cannot fulfill the need he or she has in his heart, that person will not be happy. And why would you want to have a relationship with somebody who's not happy? Every day obsessed with something that he or she can't fulfill. So common sense brings us to this conclusion. That is very difficult as a human being. We are just simple human beings. We have our needs, we have our attachments, emotions. 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, we had a class. There was somebody, Tamara Kowalska. Anybody knows Tamara Kowalska? She and her husband lived here. Her husband was he played in a band, kind of like a rocker, but he was studying theology. He wants to become a pastor or a priest or whatever you call it. And she's still studying yoga by email with me. And she's practicing very diligently. She's very busy keeping her head above the surface, as we say in Dutch, staying alive. Because they follow their heart, they have a lot of hardship. So she's working 6 days a week in a coffee shop to get by. Her husband, I don't know, he's still studying maybe, but anyway, there's very little income. But she, one day, as I told you about the disease of opposition, people who are continuously practicing yoga will eventually feel restlessness occurring because something starts to stir in you that you do not recognize yet. That is what lies deeper in you. And so she felt that, and she told her husband, I have to go. And his reaction was, she wrote me that, and I was so happy to read that. His reaction was, well, Tamara, if you have to go, please go. And when you're ready doing your thing, come back and I'll be here for you. It is so rare that people can do this. It's probably because of his study of theology that he understood. As his hobby is also, he's a musician, songwriter, so he's been confronted with this many times. Maybe also in the text that he sings, but he understood. And as a result, or in the end, she didn't go. She continued to develop more, focus on the practice, staying alive, of course, surviving, but teaching yoga to people also, in Vancouver, I think, they live. And now they decided to start a shelter for street boys, street kids. Absolutely marvelous. You understand a little bit? And it's all in line with their heart. She with yoga, he with his theology. And they make a wonderful couple together, and they are going to make a wonderful difference in Vancouver over the next decades. Simply because they follow their heart. But I'm telling you about this because of this element of unconditional love. That her husband just said, well, Tamara, if you have to go, okay, just go. And see where it goes. Can you do that? Can you do that? less difficult. I think you have to have had some experience with a relationship to learn about this also. Because especially the first relationship is very tumultuous, very attached and terrible. If you remember your first love, maybe. Horrible. No? No? You are so in love, which is very spiritual. You are floating on the clouds, seeing the world through pink glasses. But very soon attachment kicks in. And you ask yourself, where is she? What is she doing? Is she dating someone else? Who did you meet yesterday? Right? That is destroying everything. Sure, you all recognize this. Let it go. It's not important. That is what you have to learn. Your attachment will lead to the opposite of what you desire or what you want. Your attachment leads to the destruction of the relationship, rather than making it more mature and letting it grow. Good. That is about purity. We'll come back to that. Maybe you see also that all these subjects, the yamas and the niyamas, they're all related to each other. And they're all entwined with each other. The next subject we have is contentment, to practice contentment. And it always reminds me of my grandfather, my mother's side. Never known grandfather on my father's side, but my mother's side's grandfather, he was what you call a bon vivant. Do you know that word in English also? Bon vivant? He didn't care about anything. My mom was born before the Second World War. He was a shoe repairman, and he just worked whenever he wanted to. And they had nothing to eat. They had to share one egg with 4 people, and when they got their ration of milk, they would add half of water to it. But of course, I didn't live at that time yet. But as a child, we visited always every Sunday, and he would sit in his chair with a big holy smile on his face, with one cigar he would smoke in a week on Sunday, with a glass of Geneva with sugar in it. And he would sit there on his chair with 7 children running around, and he would just sit there with a big smile and go. He never heard of yoga probably, but absolutely, totally content. And he died in his sleep also, very peacefully. He knew that he would die. My mom, he told her every Wednesday evening, and on Wednesday morning when she was there, he said, I'm going to blow the crow's march, which means you feel that you are going to die. And that evening he died in his sleep, very peaceful, totally content. No diseases, no. Of course, he should have taken care a little bit more about his family during the war, and after the war too, crisis. But anyway, just as an example of contentment, not of responsibility. He's a good example. Contentment. Contentment is something that you have to adopt yourself. That is why it is not a yama, but a niyama. Non-desire is a yama. That is something you have to avoid greed. But contentment is something that you have to pursue consciously. And surely it is very much related to non-desire, but the instinct, the corner of the point of view is a little bit different. It is really something that you it's something that you do actively every time. People complain all the time. All the time people complain. My answer is always, when people complain, is look at the bright side. Look at what you have rather than what you don't have. Positive thinking, it is proven scientifically. They have done research, putting these things on people's brains and put them in a machine. People have a tendency to think negatively. It's just the natural tendency of a human being. Complain. People like to complain. They love to complain very often. So contentment is something that you, every time when you feel that you want to complain about something, every time when you feel you are dissatisfied with something, lacking something, you just simply, consciously tell yourself, hey, wait a minute. I have so much to go for. There are so many good things in my life. Why not focus on that? One thing that people very often forget or take for granted is their health. And then they have trouble in them. We all have trouble in our lives. We grow up, we have to learn to live. So we always run into conflicts and we don't know really what we want, and the things that we do we are not satisfied with, and this is how we find our way in life until we find what we're looking for. But always complaining and always unsatisfied but if you have experienced being sick, in the sense that it debilitates you, then you know how terrible it is for people who don't have their health anymore. And if that's what you have the most important thing in your life. All the rest is only a matter of doing effort, and you can achieve whatever you want, whatever you set your mind to. Do you believe that? Do you believe that you can achieve in your life whatever you want? Whatever you set your mind to? It's true. But you have to be patient. So, I think we all have a task in pursuing what we really want in our life, whatever that may be. Maybe you want to buy an airplane. Well, then you go for it. And you will. But you have to be patient. You have to be patient and take care of the preparatory work. First go to a school where you can learn how to fly, study. And in the meantime you start earning money. And you will have an airplane one day. If you want. If that's what you really want. You have to be patient. And that's one of the biggest lack people have, that is patience. Of course, you don't need an airplane. So when you practice contentment, then you say, well, I better buy a bicycle. But anyway, it is good to pursue dreams, and instead there's an airplane. Why not? Because the moment that you are able to have one, you're probably going to do something good with it. Maybe save people in the third world or something, or something constructive. Anyway. Can you do that? Practice contentment? It's a game, huh? You have to play. Because you will catch yourself many times having this tendency to complain and being dissatisfied. But the moment you are aware of that, you just have to say to yourself, hey, wait a minute. What am I doing? It's not fair. I have so much. And sometimes I advise people also when people are kind of desperate or so, and so engulfed with their misery in their life, I just keep a mirror in front of people and just say, look, you are miserable, but There are so many people in the world who are so much more miserable than you. So look at it from that point of view, and from there you start going up. There are many people in this world who are uneducated, have totally no control over their lives. If you want, you can take control of your situation and get out of that misery. But you have to learn the lesson from the misery. And from there, you can only go up. Today is the first day of the rest of your lives. You can only get better. You have to learn from that misery. That is why you are in misery. Because you have to learn. I think you all recognize this. The point is, if you do this as most normal human beings do that, it happens kind of subconsciously. And that means that the process is very protracted, very long. And you will be 70 when you finally realize how to live your life happily, like my grandfather. But if you do it consciously, like we do in yoga, you don't have to wait until you're 70, you can start now. Because it is all simply a matter of awareness. You become conscious. That is why when we sit 15, 20 minutes at the end, we do not do a meditation technique yet, apart from listening to nada, but we just observe what is going on. These days they have a new modern term for that. It's called mindfulness. You're practicing mindfulness simply by sitting down, trying to be quiet and observe. And that may seem very unimportant, shallow maybe, but it is very far-fetching, very far-going. It changes people. Totally. Simply observing. Why? Because you start becoming aware of yourself. You start to see who you are, what you are. You thought that you know already, but you start seeing yourself in reality. Your tendencies, your reactions to things, and why they happen. And how it would be if you wouldn't allow them to happen. Because yoga is a science of life, but more than that, it is the science of the control of life. You have to understand that. That is what yoga is about. You don't believe me? Then look at the second sutra in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali that says Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And if I explain this to you, you will not understand still what it means. But yoga is the control of the vrittis down until the level of chitta. Can you eat that? No. Chitta is the memory. Chitta is the memory, but not the memory in your mind, because the memory is not in the mind. The memory is in your energy circulation. It's a long story. The whole first module of the advanced course is about that, so I can't deeply explain that. A vritti is a memory stored in your energy circulation. To make it simple, we have a look at trauma, for example. Traumatic experiences. Traumatic experiences are very prevalent, of course, most of the times, but they can lie, they usually lie under the surface, yeah? But they get triggered by something. The memory itself, the memory that is imprinted in your energy circulation is called the samskara. As long as the samskara is dormant, so you are not aware, it is a samskara. Yeah? But especially with traumatic events that have happened in our lives. When we accelerate energy, in yoga we do that by meditation and practicing asana and so on, but in normal people's lives that happens by accident. They see something, people see something, or they smell something, or somebody says something to them, which triggers the samskara to be awakened. Then it becomes a friti. So the friti is the memory coming to life again. And you become, in case of trauma, of course, you become very emotional as a result of that. And you have no control over that. You become emotional, and so you start yelling or crying or self-destructive behavior, or there is a very violent reaction as a result of that. This is the definition of yoga. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the control of the vrittis up until the level of chitta, the memory. That means, practically, that you are aware of the samskaras, your traumas or other memories. I'm using samskaras to make a shortcut explaining it practically. But you are full of memories, all kinds of memories, also not traumatic, even pleasant memories. Every memory that comes up causes a disturbance, also pleasant memories. There are people who spend all their evenings in the bar drinking beer, mesmerizing about the good old days. That is also not good. So good memories are just as bad memories in yoga, considered to be. No difference between good and bad. Every time a memory is triggered, it causes a disturbance. So as a yogi, if you stay on this path longer and longer, your sensitivity will increase to such a point that you feel the potential of the samskara awakening. And if you know that, you are ahead of it and you can prevent it from turning into a friti, which will turn into a violent reaction emotionally. And that is what yoga is about, based upon the Yoga Sutras from Patanjali. And to get there, we have to do all these terrible exercises. And you have to listen to all my terrible stories that confront you basically with who you are and how you do things, and sometimes with things that you are not so happy about. This is yoga. And so actually, what you have to do next time when you go to another yoga school is ask the teacher, what does yoga mean? And then he should come up with this definition. Because this is the definition of yoga. But nobody knows. Many people don't know. And if they do know it, they know it literally, but they cannot really explain it. It takes a lot of study. The advanced course, the first module of the advanced course is the most terrible. Second and the third is the study of Patanjali, but the first module of the advanced course is the study of the science of soul. And that is about vrittis and samskaras and buddhi and how you function on a subtle level. We think we have a brain, but in yoga, there's not just one brain, there are 4 elements that determine the functioning of you mentally. So that goes very deep, and that is pretty tough study. I'm pretty capable of explaining it practically, but it's difficult to go through, especially because it's the first module. It's a little bit discouraging for the second module. But if you can come through that, then you will also much deeper understand this. And basically, real yoga study should be about this. Not just about exercises, accelerating energy, causing transformations, etc., but also how it is all affecting us. So I'm not sure if I told you this, that in Hatha Yoga it is said it takes 12 years to come to enlightenment. In Raja Yoga it takes only 3 years. That is theoretical, of course, but that is an indication of the difference between just practicing or practicing and studying. Because Raja Yoga is the study of the whole, including the lectures that we have, including discussions, including studying Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Patanjali, Science of Soul, etc. Books of Alice Bailey, also very constructive. Hatha Yoga, you just limit yourself to practice mostly. And so all kinds of developments take place, but you don't talk about them. You don't study about them. And because of that, you are not really aware of what is happening. You are basically subject to what is happening. If you study, you consciously know what is happening, and as a result of that, the developments go a lot faster. So that's why theoretically they say Raja Yoga leads to enlightenment in 3 years, Hatha Yoga in 4 years, 12 years, 4 times as much. Questions? No?
Actually, just about contentment.
Yes.
And the idea of that. I find I often think about the future quite a lot. I feel
Yes.
like happy now. Is that also quite a large part of contentment, just being satisfied with the moment or living in the present moment?
That depends on what you see in the future.
I think it's because I'm always constantly thinking about future plans and what I'm doing. So I'm not thinking about so much now, but thinking about the next thing, or I'm not quite content because I'm always working towards something else. So I don't know if that comes under contentment or maybe if that's something totally separate.
It depends a little bit on what you pursue for the future. I'm always busy with the future too. That is important. Where do you want to go? You think I will stay like this, in this place, until I'm 80? I know it won't happen, especially not in Korea, because here everything changes all the time. And maybe after 10 years they decide to demolish this building and build a whole new grand plan, as they have for this area. They will sooner or later demolish, except for the 63 building, they will demolish everything. They call it redevelopment. Huge project. I know that I won't be here, so I'm busy too with the future. But you have to contentment. What do you want for the future? That is the question. So if what you want for the future is very materialistic, say for example you just want to be rich, just for the heck of it, then you will be full of desire, and desire makes you sick, because that desire will be frustrated as a result of your struggles. But if your future planning is related to what are you going to do, where are you going, and how are you going to do it, and kind of fulfilling your dream, fulfilling your life, actually I should say. And that can be materialistic, but there is an underlying reason, important reason for that. Then it is not about greed and desire for wealth, but for certain stability that you need to build upon, to build your dream upon, to build your future upon. We all need that. I think if you have large ambitions, you need contentment, but not to destroy your plans. Because then you become just a Tapas person. After 30 years you will be in the same place, just a little bit older, but no development, no growth, no progress. But that is not contentment. There are many people in this world. You see also particular cultures. People in Buddhist countries have a tendency to practice contentment in kind of as an excuse for laziness. And not only in Buddhist countries, also in Islamic countries. And it is no coincidence that most of those countries are poor. It's because people are rather lazy than active. And if there is an excuse, especially if you can hide yourself behind a god, then that is nice. You just sit in the sun and you smoke your cigar or drink your tequila or whatever. I don't drink. But you know, Muslims say inshallah. So if something has to be done, they will just rely on God to let it happen. Inshallah means if God wants it, then it will be done. And Buddhists, they just smile and just enjoy life. That is a good attitude, but a little bit too far. With Europe, where people are very diligent, especially in the colder parts of Europe. In the southern part of Europe, Greece, Italy, southern France, Spain, Portugal, until a couple of decades ago, they were very poor too. Because of that attitude. Is it probably because of the weather? Or likely? But the colder countries, people are very diligent, but they know very much about contentment too. Like my grandfather. It's something that you have, it's a play. Because it is not black and white. You have to have your dream and your ambitions for the future. I have a lot. I had a lot. I'm very content now, but it's not where I want to be. Or, for example, eventually I wanna do this course for free, or give a free course for women who are married to Korean men, women from abroad, who are a little bit miserable and need.
Hey, we don't have
Yeah, something like that. But to do that, you have to have a basis. Then you can be totally free, and you can do really what your heart wants. So you are evolving. Don't let go of your ambitions for the sake of contentment, but be content with how far you have already gotten. And from there you just go on. Life doesn't stand still. Not for a dynamic person. I see in my family and friends I left behind in Holland, most of them are standing still actually. But you would never find them in a yoga class like this. Other questions? Contentment? It's just a concept. I saw while explaining, a lot of you I saw nodding in recognition. So keep this in your mind. Because if you can practice a little bit of contentment in your life, it will make your life so much better. It's good to have ambition, but ambition, like the fritties, needs to be controlled to a certain extent. We will come back to that when we discuss the chakras. That's very important in the Manipura chakra, because that is the center of our ambition and ego. And remember this definition of yoga. As a yogi, you have to know that if you want to take yourself serious as a yoga teacher. So this definition doesn't say anything about exercise, asana or meditation. Just control your tendencies basically. That is what it is saying. And to do that, to learn to do that, you have to do all those difficult things and study all those difficult concepts and be constantly confronted with yourself. So we learn about truthfulness, for example, so that you honestly look at yourself. And one important thing in this whole is that we have to learn to stop putting labels on things. This is bad, this is good, bad habit, good habit. Because human beings, especially when it comes to themselves, are often very harsh in their judgment. So I always say that you first have to become your own best friend. That is the first important thing for you to do in life. To stop being judgmental, starting with yourself. Based upon that, you can in the future become non-judgmental to people in your surroundings. But most people have a tendency to be really hard on themselves, and you have to stop doing that. Questions? More? No? Okay, let's start.